Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're diving into Kaynes Technology. They're right in the middle of India's electronics boom. We've got their financials, presentations, even some industry analysis. So get ready, because we're going to get into it.
You know, what I find really interesting about this is we're not just looking at, just one company. We're looking at like the entire electronics system design and manufacturing landscape in India. It's huge.
ESDM.
ESDM. Yeah, I've heard that thrown around.
Yeah. And we're talking, government initiatives, the shift from imports to local production, even the future of smart tech.
Okay. So when you say smart tech, what exactly are we talking about? Like self-driving cars or is it even bigger than that?
Yeah, all of that. I mean, the potential here is massive. It's pretty exciting stuff.
All right. So Kaynes Technology, over 3 decades old, but just went public in 2022. What is it about this company? Well, let's go back to the beginning. Founded in 1988, right? Started small, steadily growing over the years. And what I find really fascinating is that early focus on quality, global reach. They achieved ISO certification back in 1995.
Yeah.
And they set up their first export unit in 2000. They were thinking big from the start.
So they had a solid foundation, I guess, for success. Yeah. But how did they transform from a small manufacturing unit to like a full-fledged ESDM solutions provider? I mean, that's a big jump, right?
It is. And that's where their strategic evolution comes in, right? They didn't just stick to basic manufacturing. Kaynes expanded into design services, connected product engineering, and even IoT solutions.
Yeah.
They were adapting. They were growing with the times.
Yeah. That definitely makes sense, especially with their public listing in 2022. It's like they were getting ready for a whole new, level of growth. And then they had that successful QIP. What's it like? What is a QIP?
Well, think of it this way. It's like they essentially sold shares to like big institutional investors.
Yeah.
And that gave them this fresh injection of cash, right, to fuel even more expansion.
I see. So they're using that money to grow even faster.
Exactly. And they put that money to work quickly.
Yeah.
They acquired Iskraemeco India.
Iskraemeco
India, a company that's making waves in the smart meter market.
Smart meters.
Yes.
Okay. So they're not afraid to make big moves, it sounds like. But how does all of this fit into like the bigger picture of the ESDM industry in India? Is this even a sector like worth paying attention to?
Oh, absolutely. This industry is on fire right now.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. The government's pushing hard for local manufacturing with initiatives like Make in India.
Right.
And demand for electronics it's skyrocketing across all sectors. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. So you got my attention. What does that growth look like, though? Are we talking like specific products or is this just some abstract numbers?
Well, let's break it down, right? One area where Kaynes is really shining is automotive electronics. They're producing everything from those intricate PCBAs, printed circuit board assemblies, those little tiny green boards with all the chips and everything on them, right?
Yeah, right, okay.
And those LED lighting systems, you see them in like modern cars. And then those electronic control units, they're like the brains of the vehicle, basically.
Okay, so as someone who really appreciates a good car, I should be paying attention to Kaynes because they're part of shaping that future, right?
You got it.
Right.
And it's not just cars. Think about medical devices.
Yeah.
They're becoming so much more sophisticated these days. And Kaynes is manufacturing components for like, high-tech equipment like endoscopy carts, X-ray machines, even diagnostic analyzers.
Wow. Okay. So they're not just focused on like the high-tech stuff.
Yeah.
What about their involvement in the railway sector? I've heard they're doing stuff there.
Yeah, that's another area where they're making a big impact. They're helping to modernize railway systems in India, working on things like train collision avoidance systems, TCAS, crucial for safety and efficiency, right? They're even involved in aerospace and defense. Those mission-critical components that require like absolute precision, and reliability. They've got a dedicated facility now for that.
So they're basically involved in like every industry, it sounds like, that uses electronics.
Yeah.
But with all this growth, are they actually making money? Like, revenue is one thing, but I want to know about the bottom line.
Well, that's the key question, right? And the good news is their financials show they're not just growing, they're growing profitably. Their EBITDA margin, which basically tells you how much profit they're making from their core operations, is consistently healthy, like hovering around 14%.
14%, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad at all.
But what's driving their profitability? Like, is it just because they're getting bigger or is there more to it?
It's a mix of factors, right? Their product mix, the balance between like high volume and high value products definitely contributes. They're not just churning out basic components. They're also involved in these, really sophisticated higher margin products.
Okay. So they've got a smart strategy, it sounds like. But I'm curious about their order book.
hmm
Are they just relying on existing clients, or are they like securing new business to fuel this growth?
Their current order book is, well, it's seriously impressive. It's a whopping 54,228 million rupees.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to need you to repeat that number because I did not catch all that.
54,228 million rupees.
That is huge.
Yeah, it is. And they're not just resting on their laurels. They're constantly adding marquee clients across various sectors. Remember that Iskermeco acquisition?
Yeah.
That alone opens up this massive opportunity in the smart meter market, potentially like 40 to 50 million smart meters over the next few years.
Okay, that's a lot of meters. But I'm thinking like execution timelines. Do all those orders translate into like immediate revenue, or are we talking about a longer horizon?
That's a really important point. Execution timelines can vary wildly. Some projects, they might be delivered within months. Others could take years. It all depends on, the project complexity, customer requirements, and even those, industry dynamics we talked about earlier.
So it's not just about like the size of the order book, but understanding like when those orders will actually turn into money, right?
Exactly.
Makes sense. But how are they handling this massive growth, though, in terms of their like actual manufacturing capacity? Are they struggling to keep up, or are they like ahead of the game
They're not just keeping up, they're actively expanding.
actively?
Yeah. Kaynes currently has 12 manufacturing facilities across India, but they're not stopping there.
They're not stopping. Okay.
No. They've got big plans. They're going to set up new facilities in Karnataka, expand their existing sites in Mysore and Manasar, and even venture into new areas like OSAT.
OSAT. Now, come on, you can't just drop an acronym like that and not tell us what it means.
Okay, sorry. OSAT, Outsourced Semiconductor Assembly and Testing.
Okay, and what is that exactly?
Well, it's basically taking semiconductor chips, right, and packaging them into those tiny components you see on circuit boards.
Okay.
It's a highly specialized process,
Yeah.
and by bringing it in-house, Kaynes is gaining more control over their supply chain.
Yeah, because everybody's talking about chip shortages, right?
Exactly. This is especially crucial in a world where, everyone wants the latest gadgets, but there aren't enough chips to go around.
So they're strategically positioning themselves to be ready for that.
Yeah, making sure they have access to those chips, to keep growing.
Pretty smart. But they're also getting into something called HDI PCB manufacturing. What is that?
So HDI PCBs. High-density interconnect printed circuit boards. They're basically like the backbone of all those sophisticated electronics, that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
They're incredibly complex, tiny, tiny components packed tightly together. Kaynes is investing in this technology because it allows them to create even more advanced and miniaturized electronics.
So it's like smaller but more powerful.
Exactly.
So they're not just like keeping up, they're pushing the boundaries.
They are.
Okay, but all of this expansion and investing in like new technologies, that must take a lot of money.
Right.
Are they putting enough resources into R&D like to stay ahead of the curve?
Oh, they definitely understand that innovation is key. They're pouring money into R&D, particularly in areas like ODM solutions, original design manufacturing, think smart devices, IoT solutions, even like cutting-edge stuff like brushless drive technology, gallium nitride technology. It's really impressive. They're not just following trends, they're making them.
That's incredible, but it sounds expensive. How are they managing their financial health with all these ambitious plans? What do their debt levels look like? Cash flow?
Yeah.
Are they taking on too much risk?
That is a great question. And it's one that we're going to dive deeper into in the next part of our deep dive.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
All right. So we've talked about Kaynes' journey so far from, their humble beginnings to these really ambitious expansion plans. But we left off with that cliffhanger. How are they managing their financials with all this growth?
Okay, let's get into it. They've been smart about using those funds from the IPO and the QIP we talked about,
Yes.
right, to fuel their growth. And their debt levels, they're manageable, but there's no denying that rapid expansion and the strategic inventory buildup, it's putting pressure on their cash flow.
So they're walking this tightrope, this balance between, growing and being financially smart.
Mhm.
Are they like taken any steps to address that cash flow pressure?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're actively working on optimizing their working capital management. It's like fine-tuning a financial engine,
Yeah.
to make sure they have enough cash on hand to pay their bills, invest in future growth, keep everything running
So
smoothly.
it's like keeping the lights on,
Yeah.
but also like making sure the engine's running.
Exactly. They're aiming to reduce their net working capital cycle to around 72 days by the end of the year.
72 days.
Yeah, yeah. A significant improvement from their current, 108 days.
Okay, so that's a big jump. It sounds like they're serious about
Oh,
this.
right.
But beyond the numbers, I'm curious about like the larger implications of Kane's growth. What does all this mean for like, someone like me just trying to navigate this crazy tech world?
That's a great question. Kaynes' success, it's not just about one company. It's a sign of India's growing role in the global tech landscape. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Think about those smart meters they're manufacturing, right? They're not just devices, they're like gateways to a smarter, more efficient energy grid. It's potentially impacting your electricity bills, even the way you consume energy in the future.
So like they're literally shaping like the future of energy consumption.
They are, they are.
That's pretty awesome. And what about their role in the automotive sector? Especially, with all this talk about electric vehicles.
That's another area where they're making a real difference. Kaynes is producing components for EVs, and their success, it directly impacts the availability and affordability of those vehicles in India.
So like it could actually influence my next car purchase.
Potentially, yeah.
Wow. Okay. It's amazing to see how their work's connected to these like larger trends
Hmm.
and impact in our daily lives. But with all this talk about, Kane's success, are there any challenges they're facing? Like, is everything really, as rosy as it seems?
Well, no company operates in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
Keynes faces challenges just like any other. One of the biggest, and they've acknowledged this, in their presentations, is the global chip shortage.
Right.
The demand for semiconductors is through the roof, and that's putting pressure on manufacturers worldwide.
So it's like everyone wants the latest of gadgets, but there aren't enough chips to go around.
Exactly.
So how is Keynes dealing with that? Are they like at the mercy of these global forces, or are they, are they taking steps?
That's where their strategic move into OSAT becomes even more important,
Right.
Outsourced semiconductor assembly and testing, remember?
Yeah, yeah.
By bringing some of that, chip packaging process in-house, they're trying to gain more control over their supply chain,
Yeah.
and reduce that reliance on external, chip suppliers.
So they're like building their own arc, basically.
Yeah, they're not just waiting for the storm to pass, they're taking action.
That's a pretty bold move. But beyond the chip shortage, what other challenges are like shaping the ESDM landscape? Is it all smooth sailing from here?
Not quite. The ESDM industry is constantly evolving,
Right.
and companies like Kaynes, they got to adapt to stay competitive. One of the biggest trends is Industry 4.0. That's the fancy term, for the convergence of digital technologies and manufacturing.
Okay, break that down for me. What does that actually mean?
Think automation, data analytics, the smart factories that we keep hearing about.
Right. So it's like the rise of the machines, but in a good way.
Exactly.
Okay. So how's Keynes fitting into this Industry 4.0 revolution? Are they embracing it, or are they getting left behind?
They're definitely embracing it. They're not just, making gadgets. They're developing and manufacturing the very electronics that are powering this digital transformation. They're providing the sensors, the controllers, the communication modules that enable those smart factories to operate.
So that they're essential players in this whole Industry 4.0 game.
They are.
But with all this, connectivity, all this automation, are there any downsides? I'm thinking cybersecurity risks. Those factories, they're becoming more vulnerable, right, to cyber attacks. Is Keynes addressing this?
They're definitely aware of the importance of cybersecurity. As those factories get more connected, they also become more vulnerable to hackers, right?
Right.
Keynes is investing in building cybersecurity capabilities right into their products,
Yeah.
ensuring that those systems they power are protected from malicious actors.
So they're not just thinking about like the functionality, they're thinking about the security too. That's good. But beyond these like technological challenges, are there any other trends, that are impacting the ESDM industry? I'm thinking sustainability, the growing demand for like eco-friendly electronics. Is Kaynes on board with this whole movement?
They're making progress on that front. They've highlighted their focus on energy efficiency, waste reduction,
Yeah.
responsible sourcing. They're even exploring green manufacturing techniques, circular economy principles,
Right.
design and products for, easy repairability and recycling. It's a big deal.
So they're taking steps, but there's always room to do more, right? Like what else could they be doing to, really be a leader in sustainable electronics manufacturing?
Well, they could invest in developing even more sustainable products, using recycled materials, reducing their carbon footprint throughout their entire supply chain, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Partnering with suppliers who share that commitment, it's key.
Right, right. It's not just about doing the right thing. It's about, meeting that demand from consumers. But beyond these company-specific challenges, what about the geopolitical landscape? We're seeing a shift away from, reliance on a single manufacturing hub, particularly like China. How does this impact Kaynes and the Indian ESDM industry as a whole?
That is a fascinating point. This global shift, it's creating this huge opportunity for India.
Yeah.
They've got this growing manufacturing capability, a skilled workforce. And Kaynes, they're perfectly positioned. They're already serving international clients. And those expansion plans, they're signaling their ambition, right?
Yeah.
To become a global ESDM powerhouse.
So they're riding this wave, potentially, putting India on the map. But what does it mean for, us?
The average consumers, right?
All about choice and access. As India becomes a major electronics manufacturing hub,
Yeah.
you're going to see, a wider variety of products available, potentially, more competitive prices.
Yeah.
It could even lead to the creation of, entirely new products
Okay.
driven by, Indian innovation tailored to specific needs.
So it's not just about economics, it's about empowering Indian consumers.
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful story. But with all these opportunities, there's got to be some challenges, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the potential roadblocks that Kaynes and the Indian ESDM industry might face as they try to, hit these ambitious goals?
That's a great question, and that is something that we will explore in the final part of our deep dive.
So stay tuned. All right, so we've been talking about Kaynes, their incredible growth and India's whole push to become this global electronics manufacturing hub. But you left us hanging with that question of, potential roadblocks. What are some of the challenges they might actually, face along the way?
One of the biggest, talent. Attracting and retaining top talent. The ESDM industry needs highly skilled engineers, designers, technicians, and as India, ramps up its manufacturing capacity, that competition, it's going to be fierce. Kaynes is going to have to invest in training programs, create a work environment that attracts the best and brightest, right?
So it's not just about, building factories and securing those orders. It's about the people.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But beyond talent, what other roadblocks are there? Infrastructure limitations. India still has a ways to go, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Reliable power, efficient transportation networks, seamless logistics, those are crucial for any, manufacturing operation. And those are still areas where, India faces some challenges. If Kaynes wants to compete globally, they'll need to, advocate for improvements, maybe even invest in their own solutions to get around those limitations.
So they might have to take on a more proactive role, not just waiting for the government to, to fix those problems.
Yeah.
But what about the ease of doing business in India? I've heard that bureaucracy and red tape can be a real headache.
Oh, yeah. It's a valid concern. Streamlining regulations, simplifying those permitting processes, creating a more business-friendly environment. Crucial for attracting foreign investment, for fostering growth.
Yeah.
Kaynes, along with other industry players, they're going to have to, work with the government to make that happen.
So it's a collaborative thing, not just a solo mission.
Right.
But beyond those practical challenges, are there other factors, that could impact their success? Global economic conditions, political stability, even those black swan events that nobody can predict.
Those are the tough ones, right?
Yeah.
Kaynes will have to be agile, adaptable. They got to monitor the global landscape, constantly adjust their strategies. They'll need strong relationships with international partners, diversify markets, create a resilient supply chain that can withstand those, unexpected disruptions.
So it's anticipating the challenges, managing risk, and being prepared for anything, basically.
Exactly.
But with all these potential roadblocks, are you still optimistic?
Mm.
about Kaynes' future and India's, chances of becoming this global electronics manufacturing hub. What's your overall take on it?
I'm cautiously optimistic. India has the potential. They've got the talent, the ambition. And Keynes is a great example of a company that's leading the charge. But, success, it depends on so many factors, many outside their control. It's a long game, and we'll have to see how it plays out.
It's a fascinating story, full of promise, but also potential pitfalls,
Right.
right?
But
That's what makes it so interesting, though. We're watching a key moment in India's economic history, and Keynes is right there in the middle of it.
As we wrap up our deep dive here, I want you to think about the electronics you use every day, your smartphone, your laptop, your car. Consider that possibility that in the future, many of these devices, they could be designed and manufactured in India.
Yeah.
It's something to think about.
That's a pretty exciting thought. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Kaynes Technology and the ESDM industry. We've covered a lot from company financials, to their growth strategies, global trends, potential challenges. But like with any deep dive, we've only just, scratched the surface.
There's always more to explore, more to learn, more to analyze. That's what keeps it interesting, right?
Exactly. The world of technology, it's always changing, and companies like Kaynes, they're leading the way.
They are.
So, stay curious, keep exploring. Who knows what incredible innovations are coming next?
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Happy exploring.